and I saw my spirit guide, and I had a powerful experience. I saw that there was a white light from very far away, and it looked like it was wearing a leather jacket and riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I was like, okay, what is this? So Gila says, what do you see? I'm saying, because for whatever reason, I know it's 7 miles away. There's this light being, and he's going around looking at different soul groups, and he's trying to find something. And I look at him, I'm squinting my eyes, and he turns around and looks at me, and immediately he's right in front of me. And I recognize him as my older son. And he said, I am looking for a soul that has enough courage to be my father in my next life.
David Marsh, Journeys into the Soul. How are you? Thank you so much for joining the show.
Well, it's fun, and it's fun to meet fellow light workers, people that are out there just doing stuff and creating content. I love what you're doing, and so thank you for being part of this whole thing.
You know what? Likewise, I love your content as well, and I'm so glad you used the term light worker because, I don't often dig into my beliefs on this show. I don't often dig into my spiritual journey because I try to let this be a platform and a portal, as the word that you used before we started recording, for folks to kind of figure out what they believe and what they're into. But I definitely resonate with the term light worker, and I'm glad that you resonate with that as well. I think that's great. I'm like really excited for us to get into some really kind of juicy areas.
Yeah, there's people like yourself, the content I've created, and we're creating little portals for people to enter into something different. What's a new paradigm? And I think the spiritual journey starts when you go, wonder what's my purpose. Wonder if there's something else. Bing, you're on a spiritual journey. Get ready.
Yeah. Get ready is the perfect way to put it. I mean, I've told people before, if you start asking these questions, buckle up, because you are going to go down some serious rabbit holes, which kind of makes me wonder for you, David. When I was looking at your films, when I was looking at just the great content that you've made, you've been a filmmaker and you've been a spiritual seeker for years, from what I could tell. But was it always like that? Were you encouraged to ask these questions as a child? Did you have a spiritual or religious kind of viewpoint?
Yeah, I was raised as a fundamentalist evangelical Christian, and the whole paradigm is we've got to get out of here to get to somewhere else, to get to heaven, to be with God. But unfortunately, you're not worthy to be with God. And so somebody has to do something. And Jesus is then a solution to a problem. And I'm the problem. I'm not good enough to be with God. I'm not worthy to be with the divine. And so I was given that unworthy paradigm my whole life. And so I always felt like I had to be the good boy. I had to do the right thing. There's no such thing as being curious. You can't have wonder. You have to just do what you're supposed to do to endure to the end, to prove yourself worthy. So there's a bunch of these underlying narratives that I'm sure a lot of other people have had to deal with. And at some point in time, that no longer was something I was interested in. And it happened. I heard a podcast by a guy named Rob Bell, and Rob said, what if heaven and hell, what if heaven and hell are states of consciousness rather than destinations? And once I heard him say that, I was like, I got to find out more about Rob. So I, learned a bunch of who he is and enjoyed his content. But that started me on my spiritual journey of, I wonder if everything I have believed my whole life, wonder if it's not correct. And I was told this is the only truth. It's the only way to have, the Bible's the truth. And so I began a spiritual journey, and that is the path that I am currently on.
I love that. And, I'm really curious because I'm also a Rob Bell fan. And for some of the folks in our audience who may not know, Rob Bell is notorious for really questioning whether hell existed or if hell was eternal. He was asking some big questions. And if I remember correctly, he was an evangelical preacher. So this was highly controversial for him to even ask that question, even without coming to a conclusion at first. So I'm wondering, as someone like you, who was an evangelical Christian, who, as I think you put it, a fundamentalist, was that offensive to you, what you were hearing that Rob Bell was saying? Were you scared, or were you immediately able to kind of let that resonate within you?
Well, the first thing is everyone know hell is a reality. I mean, you go to hell when you die if you're not saved. And so I had to go,
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
I'm being tricked by the devil here. So I had to unwrap that whole thing. Is there a
Yeah.
hell? Is hell? What's the mythology? I've come to the conclusion that it's completely an earth mythology, and
Hmm.
it's used in the soul realm to have an experience. There's life
Yeah.
lessons that you learn through those different religious paradigms, just as any of
Yeah.
the world religions. And so it's hard for me to enjoy that religious paradigm for myself. I no longer want to be involved in that. But there are many
Hmm.
people, many soul journeys where they have to be on that paradigm. They have to say, I believe the truth. This is it.
Yeah.
But if you quit believing the truth, you have to then unravel and, well, what is the truth? And that's a
Yeah.
whole long process. It
Yeah.
takes a while to go through that process.
So I'm wondering, as you started to kind of do that unraveling, you are introduced to Rob Bell's work. You start that unraveling. What's the next step on that journey? Was it easy breezy sailing for you, or were there deeper questions that came up?
Well, immediately I started to think, whoa, when you die, you either go to heaven or hell. There's a judgment. So I Google what happens after we die. And
Love
I found
Google.
out there's a thing called a near death experience. I'm like, a
Yeah.
near death experience. Oh, I heard my pastor talk about that. He said
Hmm.
that demons can trick people and appear as angels. And so,
Ah.
I had to try to find out, again, there's this enormous fear paradigm of hell and Satan and demons that
Yeah.
you have to try to understand. You have to unravel. Somebody saying there's no such thing as hell, you're like, no, I can't believe what you're telling me. I have to find it out for
Hmm.
myself. So I started studying near death experiences, and I read thousands of accounts. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd go do what I did during the daytime, and I'd come home at night and just read and read and read and watch videos. And I read a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald
Yes.
Walton,
Yes.
and I
Yeah.
heard the phrase "We are all one," and I'd never heard that before. Well, I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you? I'm a created being by some divine, and I'm here. It's of no will or volition of my own. I kind of feel
Yeah.
like a victim, and then I kind of get empowered because I feel like, well, it's not my fault. I'm not responsible, but I'm saved. So then I kind of feel a little bit superior to everyone else. So there's all sorts of emotions that go on there. But that
Yeah.
started my questioning. Well, what's this all about? And from
Yeah.
there, I had someone give me a book called Journey of Souls by Dr. Michael Newton. And
Hmm.
he was a guy that did hypnotherapy sessions for people.
Yeah.
And after 40 years and 7,000 case studies, I had this common theme that kept coming up, that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And this is all
Hmm.
for the journey of the soul to experience itself, to know, to experience, explore, and expand what it's like to
Yeah.
be an eternal soul, but learning in this finite human body. And I went,
Yeah.
oh, that
Yeah.
changed everything.
So, were you still going to church at this time?
I was going to church. I was
Yeah.
a worship leader in the youth group. I was
Yeah.
45 years old. My kids sang on the worship team with me. I was producing children's music called Kids World Praise, and we were singing Jesus Loves You.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Unfortunately, you're a sinner, you're bound for hell, but Jesus
Right.
loves you, so get saved. And so that was the narrative, kid music, and it was cool music, and but the narrative that I was saying was, I had this feeling one day. I was
Mhm.
leading a worship service. I'm a piano player, and we were singing, I worship you, you're worthy, I'm not. That's the context. And I felt an overwhelming sense
Yeah.
of embarrassment. That's
Oh,
the only word
wow.
I can express. I looked around and I was like, I'm embarrassed. We're all raising our hands and we're unworthy, but you are. Thank you, Jesus. And I was like, what's the message here? We're not good
Yeah.
people. What's the
Yeah.
message? And I, I couldn't. And so
Yeah.
I stepped back from that. I took some time off, and
Mhm.
I started unraveling all of that. And I had to leave my community. I mean,
Yeah.
I had to leave everyone. I tried to talk to my friends. Hey, I don't know that everything we believe is right. And they're like, no, you're wrong, 100% wrong.
Yeah.
This is why the Bible says, and the pastor, you need counseling. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had to leave my community, and that's the hardest thing when you're
Mhm.
going through a paradigm shift. The loved ones, the support suddenly is gone. You're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, maybe I've made a horrible mistake because I don't have any
Mhm.
friends anymore. Because all my friends were
Yeah.
Christian friends. We would
Yeah.
listen to Christian music and watch Christian TV and drink milk from a Christian cow. Everything's Christian, you know?"
Yeah, and I think a lot of people listening this will resonate with that, that if you start the questioning, we're social beings, right? We're social beings. We need our family. We need our friends. We need our community. For some of us, the only community that we had was our religious community. How did your family, your spouse, your kids react to these changes? Were you open with them as you were going through this?
Yeah, I was very open. My daughter came home.
Yeah.
She was in high school, and she had
Yeah.
a book. It's called I think it's called the God Code. Uh,
Yes.
it's Hawkins. What's the guy's name? It starts
David
with a
Hawkins? Yeah.
no, it's not David Hawkins. He's
Uh,
the Power versus Force guy.
oh
But
gosh. Yeah.
it's the atheist guy, and he's
Yes.
really well known. And
Yeah.
basically, he's saying there's no such thing as God. If you believe it,
Yeah.
you're a fool. And he's kind of talking about Sky Santa Claus, the guy that keeps
Yes.
a record of right and wrongs. He's not talking about the divineness and the oneness of all it is. He's talking about
Mm-hmm.
the archaic man in the sky paradigm. So my
Yeah.
daughter goes, "Hey, I think I'm atheist." And I go,
Oh.
"Really?" I go, "Well, let's study this together." And she was like, "Oh, she's trying to be a rebel." And I'm like, "I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we should try that for a while. I don't know.
Yeah.
This whole narrative I've taught you my whole life, I don't think
Yeah.
is right." And she's like, "Oh." So we all
Wow.
kind of had a deconstruction together. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a family process.
That is such a special and unique gift to use. I guess that's not just a Christian term. I was, if I said the word blessing, maybe that would be just a Christian term. But I think that is a gift to be able to do that together, because there's some people, and I've talked to some people in the highly spiritual person community that don't have that reaction from their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My immediate loved ones, my wife and my children, we were able to deconstruct together.
Yeah.
My parents, absolutely not. They're like, "You're being deceived by the devil. There's demons
Hmm.
trying to steal your soul, and everything you're doing is
Yeah.
100% wrong. And we're going to pray for you even harder now."
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of us have been told that we're going to be prayed at or prayed for, however you want to look at that. I would love to talk a little bit about the films that you've made and this great Amazon Prime series. Maybe you could kind of talk us through the journey of how you even decided to start, using film as a way to kind of explore these questions on camera.
yeah, I believe that art comes from either expressing great joy or
Yeah,
expressing deep pain.
yeah.
And for me, I wanted to create something that would
Hmm.
tell a story, tell a narrative that would
Hmm.
help people that had the same life pain that I did.
Hmm.
I'm a victim. I came here. My parents had sex and I just arrived. It's not my
Yeah.
fault.
Right.
Mm-mm, that's not
Yeah.
true. Not only did you choose to be here, but you chose your specific parents. And that
Hmm.
situation that you're in, that you're so victimized by, you chose that too. It's called
Yeah.
pre birth planning, dear soul. And you
Yeah.
chose to be here. And so I found this modality that Newton started.
Mhm.
It's called hypnotherapy, and it's
Mhm.
a deep state of relaxation. A skilled guide, a skilled facilitator will help you go through this journey, and you'll have an experience of something other than your current life. It might be the life
Mhm.
between lives, it might be a past life, it might be a different dimension, or even a different planet.
Mhm.
Whatever comes up for you during these sessions is there to inform your current space. So people will say, "Is it real? Did I really have a past life?" I don't
Mhm.
know if that was real or not, but what is real is the experience that you had and how you're able to find wisdom from that. And so
Mhm.
the tagline for the show is "The Answers Are Within." It's called
Yeah.
Journeys into the Soul.
Yeah.
So I set
Yeah.
off to create this wonderful work of art. I started filming people having real sessions with real facilitators, and I incorporated the work of Dolores Cannon. She does
Mhm.
quantum healing hypnosis technique. And so I found that these two methodologies, Newton with the life between lives hypnotherapy, Cannon with the QHHT, they both lead to the same soul realm, the same spiritual realm, if you will. And there's information that your subconscious, your higher self can give to you. And so I started filming these sessions and just kept going
Mhm.
and going and going and going. And I found myself in Europe for 5 weeks last year, and
Wow.
I filmed 20 sessions and we created 20 episodes. They're 30
Yeah.
minutes each. You get to see
Yeah.
a client, you get to learn who they are, you get to meet the practitioner or the facilitator, and then you see this journey this person has. And we
Yeah.
summarize everything in a nice 30-minute package. It's super easy
Yeah.
to watch, and you learn something from every episode. It applies to your life, every
Y-
episode.
yeah, I have to say, I was absolutely floored with how great the first episode was. I watched that first episode on Amazon Prime, and going back a little bit, a fun synchronicity. I think I told you this when we started talking via email. It just so happened that very same day, I was thinking to myself, I should get a QHHT session done. I was thinking about it for so long because I'm a huge Dolores Cannon fan, and it's a modality I haven't experienced yet, but I'm familiar with it. And when I saw your email, I said, okay, this is definitely a push for me to learn more, and this is definitely a push for me to talk to David about this today. Yeah.
Yeah, lots of good synchronicity. And when those things happen, there's no coincidences. It's something that's been put there in your pathway to explore. And it's really easy to find a practitioner. You go on the Dolores Cannon site, the QHHT official site, and there's always a practitioner nearby wherever you live. And they're all over the world. So it's a beautiful modality.
Now, I think I was reading that you're a facilitator, correct?
Yeah, I actually did the QHHD training myself. I've facilitated sessions for people, and every time I go into it going, oh, I don't know if I know what I'm doing. I don't know. Hope it works for them. And every time I just get out of the way. I just do the method. I let people be into this space of relaxation, and what comes up for them is their own journey. And I say, every life has a reason and a purpose. What was the reason for this? What was the purpose for this? And they go, the reason was this, and the purpose was this. I'm like, wow, that's really good. I couldn't have told them that. And so it's not about me doing anything. It's about me allowing them to have their experience. And there's certain things, when you're certified in this methodology, there's certain things you know how to do and you know how to help people. But it's a wonderful process. I think everybody should create that opportunity to have their own experience.
And now, have you been on the receiving end of it? Have you been able to go under hypnosis and explore your own past lives and lives between lives?
Yeah, I have. So in 2017, I reached out to someone. I live in the Phoenix, Arizona area, and there was a lady named Hila, Hila. And we actually created an episode with her on the show. And I had my first experience with Hila, and I saw myself in the life between lives space.
Yeah.
And I saw my spirit guide. And I had a powerful experience. I saw that there was a white light from very far away, and it looked like it was wearing a leather jacket and riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle. And I was like, okay, what is this? So Hila says, what do you see? I'm saying, for whatever reason, I know it's 7 miles away. There's this light being, and he's going around looking at different soul groups, and he's trying to find something. And I look at it, and I'm squinting my eyes, and he turns around and looks at me, and immediately he's right in front of me. And I recognize him as my older son. And he said, I am looking for a soul that has enough courage to be my father in my next life. And I was like, oh, okay. And he goes, you have enough courage. Will you be my father in my next life? And I was like, oh, and I saw 65% like on a clock dial. I was like, okay, you're going to take, for whatever reason, you're going to take 65% of my energy. And then there was this angelic being right next to him. And she said, me and him have some karma we have to work out. Will you be my father? And I went, oh, and the dial went, and it went to 100%. I go, oh, you guys are going to take all the energy that I have just to be your father. And then I saw this weird alien being from a different multiverse. It turned out to be my spouse. And she said, I'm going to help you on this journey. And then I saw this little white light and went bzzz, like a firefly, and it landed in front of me. And I recognized it as my third child. And his name is Alexander. And he said, will you be my father in my next life? I said, I can't. I don't have enough energy. And I began to well up with tears. And he says, you don't have to worry about that. I'm not going to take energy from you. I'm going to give you energy. And to this day, he is the child. He's 25 years old now. I was like, Dad, I love you so much. I'm so happy with who you are, and you've taught me so much. Thank you, Dad. And he's just such a wonderful kid. And so I knew at 2017 that the journey I was currently on with my family was something I was supposed to be doing. And that part of the story was my son was an active heroin addict and had this 10-year journey. And he did have an overdose a few months later. I did do CPR, and we were able to get him to come back. And we spent a few more years until 21, and he did pass away from a drug overdose. And I have the assurance that I am someone that has enough courage to accept that responsibility. I gave him the opportunity to be a soul in this realm. And I think at some point he was like, you know what? I learned my lessons. Peace out. And so that's been our human journey.
Yeah. And I just, I want to take a moment just to hold space for that. Because, I think even for us on the spiritual journey, even when we have this awareness of how the universe works, our purpose, why things happen, I can hear the way that you're telling that story. You see a higher perspective, and I respect that. It's still difficult. It's still difficult for all of us to say goodbye to the people we love in the flesh, right?
Yeah, he was a special soul.
Yeah.
I do think that in some other lifetime he was a teacher of mine, and I saw him. He and I had a mushroom journey one time,
I
and
love
on
that.
psilocybin in that altered space, which is a deep meditation. I saw that
Yeah.
he was a higher advanced being, and
Yeah.
he had many lifetimes of light and love, and he needed to have some contrast.
Yeah.
And I agreed on a soul level to play the character of his father in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So I have had the assurance that I'm on the right path, but boy,
Yeah.
sometimes the eyes well up with tears, the
Yeah.
heart feels like it's going to break, and you're like, fuck, I
Hmm.
agreed to this? This is
Yeah.
savage. And
Yeah.
yet, that's the character that I was called to play in this lifetime.
Yeah. Yeah. And just want to call out that I saw that you go through this journey on film and adapting to dive. And the one question I had for you about that journey, I was reading that this happened not long before you were going to go on this journey about divers and adaptive methods for diving, and you still decided to go even though you were actively grieving. I would love to know more about why you decided to go, and what that was like for you.
Yeah, so this story's easy to follow. I made a trailer for it, Adapting to Dive. You
Yeah.
can find it on YouTube. And I met this guy, and we said, well, let's create something together. And
Hmm.
before we go on this trip, I do all my pre-production. I make calls. Everything was lined up. Everything was ready to go. My son dies on Thanksgiving, which was a week before I
Mm.
was to leave. And
Yeah.
after that, I was like, okay, well, now I can't go on this trip. And my family was like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do. He's
Yeah.
passed. We're going to have a funeral. It's going to take some time.
Hmm.
So go on the trip. You've already given your word. So David's a good boy. David has to do the right thing.
Hmm.
So I was like, well, I'll go on the trip and I'll be a good boy and I'll do the right thing. And because of that, I was able to go there, and I saw that there's other people in life having lots of other obstacles. Not
Yeah.
only uh, these wheelchair users, not only did they lose their ability to have the lifestyle they once had,
Hmm.
they're now confined to a wheelchair.
Yeah.
The people that help them dive, they're called adaptive dive buddies. Some of them confidentially explained to me that they had a cancer, or they had
Hmm.
drastic financial problems, or they had loved ones that they had their own sicknesses and they couldn't be there, because a lot of people were
Hmm.
making decisions to continue to go forward even though they had a certain challenge, that there was something they had to go through. And so
Hmm.
I kept quiet all week. I filmed all these people, and then at the end of the week I did tell everyone that while we've been filming this week, I've been planning a funeral. And everybody was
Hmm.
like, what? And that brought us
Hmm.
together. To this
Yeah.
day, we're still a family, and we will
Yeah.
get together on these dive trips, and we're family, because
Yeah.
that experience kind of cemented this, we're all in this together. And that's what
Yeah.
the film's about. It's not a sad film. It's a film that details my journey. What would it be like to film other people and see that we're all adapting to something in life? And I named it
Hmm.
Adapting to Dive.
That's really beautiful. And I want to call out, you said we're all in this together. And it almost sounds like you're saying that not just about the folks that you were filming with, but all of humanity. Do you see kind of humanity in that way?
100%. We're all
Yeah.
in this together, and we're gonna play the characters of I'm the villain, I'm the hero, I'm gonna do my character, you do yours. I
Yeah.
do think that there's a lot of us that are moving together in the same way. I do think there's a lot of people that want to have power and control, and there's systems put in place.
Yeah.
And we all know the politics and the religion and the world,
Yeah.
the state of the world. There's lots of things that we can focus on that are not awesome.
Hmm.
But I do believe that in this giant, let's say it's a giant video game and we're playing characters, there are ways that we can all work together for a better
Yeah.
common goal. And I do think that there's more people doing that than we're led to believe through media outlets. I think
Yeah.
there's a narrative of separation.
Hmm.
But if you talk to people just one-on-one, people just want to get along.
Yeah.
They don't want to hurt each other. They just want to get along. And I do think there's other entities that, or
Mm.
governments or structures of power that want to change this narrative.
Yeah.
But I do think people, they want to love and be loved.
I think so too. I really feel that. I think if we allow the narratives, as you put it, to dictate how we view each other. Of course, we're going to view each other as enemies, but when we actually get together and talk to one another, you find out that most people, we all basically have the same needs and really kind of want the same things. Back in January, I talked to a gentleman named Rex Bundy, who is a spiritual teacher. And one of the things that he told me was that, in his view, free will does not exist. He said that everything was preordained. It might feel like you have free will, but we actually don't. I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Do you think we have free will?
I knew this was coming. I listened to that and I was like,
Yeah.
oh boy, I know Camila's going to ask me about this.
Yep.
I just had this feeling. Here it is. All
Yep.
right. So
Yep.
I do believe that we have the ability to change the course. I believe
Yeah.
your life starts at the beginning, and in pre-birth planning, every soul determines what challenges they want. So you're going to have a spouse, or a partner, you're going to have someone or multiple partners that your soul journey has experiences with. You're going to have some sort of occupation, you're going to have some
Mhm.
sort of a thing, and you're going to have some obstacles that come up. So
Yeah.
maybe those are preordained. Along the way, the soul journey sessions are very clear. We have
Mhm.
the ability to go on and suddenly take an off ramp and have a different journey. And
Yeah.
that is the part that I do believe we have free will to change the narrative. It's
Yeah.
very clear that souls can change the narrative, and
Mhm.
it's very clear that they're still going to be going along this pathway.
Yeah.
The character David is a white male, age 54. That's not going to
Mhm.
change, and that
Yeah.
pathway is going to go. But I know I've made decisions along the way that I was like, I could have gone left or right, and I chose to go left, hard left.
Right. Right.
And
Right. Right.
I do think that we get to where our soul wanted us to go, and
Yeah.
there's no wrong decisions, because every decision you make is going to inform your experience. And
Yeah.
some of them aren't going to make you as comfortable as you wanted. Of course, I love to be comfortable. I love to
Yeah.
have happiness all the time, and things are
Same.
great. And that's the challenge: is you'll never grow if you're comfortable. You're never going to move, and you
Yeah.
have to be uncomfortable. And so that's the part of, we don't have free will. Things are determined. I think things are planned. I think that's a
Yeah.
better way to say it. But you have the ability to go, no, not
Yeah.
today, Satan.
Right. Amen. Amen. It's funny. So in the spiritual community, and I'm using that word very, very loosely. So a lot of the folks that I run into, we talk about timeline jumping, switching timelines, quantum jumping, quantum leaps. So essentially manifestation, right? I'm here and I see a future where I don't know, a trapeze artist. How do I jump timelines to get there? There's all kinds of, you go on TikTok, people are always talking about this. I think your perspective is very interesting, that it sounds like you're saying it's pre-planned. There are big moments, big people that you're supposed to meet that are kind of set. You already plan that ahead of time, but you can kind of maybe jump timelines in between those big moments. Is that correct?
And from what I understand of the
Yeah.
multiverse, with my little tiny human brain that I have, uh, I am responsible for this timeline.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not
Yeah.
responsible for the other timelines. I do know that in a soul journey, a soul can split off and have multiple incarnations.
Yeah.
This consciousness that I'm currently in possession of is only responsible for the narrative right now that I'm having. And so my
Yeah.
decision making is from here. If the other multiverse, other me, made a different decision and went off, I don't know about that
Yeah.
consciously. That's in a different place. I'm not responsible for that. So I believe that all, but I don't have the experience of that all. I only have the
Yeah.
experience of this present moment, this present time.
Yeah. Yeah. Another big question for you, because I feel like we've been kind of skirting around this, you kind of touched on it a little bit about, when your daughter brought home that book that was about atheism, and it was basically, I guess, an argument against a straw man, right? Saying the sky daddy version of God. So I would love to hear just from you, who is God? What is God? What is your kind of view of that concept?
Yeah, from everything that we understand from the soul journey sessions that have been well documented and written, is the soul is a part of the all. It's a
Yeah.
part of the divine. And so that soul has many different multidimensional layers to it. One part of that soul comes down and incarnates in a human form, and it literally takes possession of a human animal
Mm.
called a human being. And it
Hmm.
gets a character, it gets a name. They say the soul integrates somewhere between the second and third trimester. And
Hmm.
so the human animal grows, and then the incarnation comes where the soul connects into the mind, and there's a wiring process that goes on so that
Hmm.
you then believe, I am David.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. But the truth is, you're part of the all, you're part of the divine source. And
Yeah.
when you go and when you leave this body and you go back to the life between lives, you're once again reacquainted to the wholeness of the all. And you're like, oh, and
Yeah.
every single person says the same word, I'm home.
Yeah.
That's where home is. And that's where I
Yeah.
think we're all part of that divine essence. I'm
Yeah.
not God in David form, but the spiritual part of me is a piece of God that's
Yeah.
having this character that I'm playing.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful, and I agree with that viewpoint. Something else that's been coming up a lot in our conversation is about roles, right? We're playing certain roles. It's almost like we're avatars, right? There's like this higher self that's kind of playing a video game almost, that we're kind of in, we're the character in. And at the beginning of the interview, we talked about light workers, right? So I kind of want to circle back to what the role of a light worker is in your view.
So individually, we have individual roles, but
Yeah.
collectively, we're part of bigger groups. And
Yeah.
so it's well documented that there's people that are here to enact change on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And it's been reported that Earth is one of the challenging planets because there's this intense energy here, something we humans refer to as fear. And
Yeah.
fear is everywhere. It's not everywhere in the universe, but it's on this planet. And the uniqueness of fear is, can you overcome the fear and find the authenticity of who you are? And
Yeah.
so in fact, I like to jokingly say that this energy is so heavy that
Yeah.
it's called gravity. You can't even get off of this planet, man. It's holding
Yeah.
you here.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
Yep.
there are groups of souls that are here to enact change. And just your very presence on this planet
Yeah.
is enough to enact change. Just the fact that you
Yeah.
don't want to go out and steal, rob, and kill people. You're saying, I just want to love people. That is enough to enact change on this planet. And then other
Yeah.
people, they create content, they make things, they bake bread for a neighbor, they knit a shawl for someone who needs it, and then
Yeah.
there's acts of kindness. But that's where together we can change the world.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on the ascension? We hear that term a lot in the spiritual world. We hear about 3D, 4D, 5D. I would just love to hear, if you
Yeah,
think we are having an ascension right now.
I grew up with religion, and whenever you
Yeah.
come around and tell me you're not good enough, you need to ascend higher, I go,
Mm-hmm.
I see who you are. All right,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
religious narrative. That's an earth
Yeah.
mythology. Now, I do
Yeah.
believe in ascension. I do believe that's what the soul journey is all about, is
Yeah.
completely taking everything in and learning from it, having it inform your soul. So yes,
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that. But I think if you think that the goal is to go on top of a mountain and meditate until you levitate off the ground and never have any needs,
Yeah.
that's not what I came to do. I came to do stuff. I came
Yeah.
to make things. I came to enjoy sunsets, chocolate, sex, and red wine, and
Yeah. Yeah.
beer and football on Sunday. And I want to make things. I want to do things. I want to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Part of my journey has been ayahuasca, and
Yeah.
it's something that's informed me in my very first ayahuasca ceremony. The message that came to me was enjoy
Yeah.
the ride, and I'm like,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Yeah.
And the ayahuasca, it's kind of it felt like a feminine presence. They call it the madre.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally felt like she was saying to me, David, that's why you came here, to enjoy the ride. And I went, but I'm
Yeah.
not enjoying the ride. And I saw the word
Yeah.
beliefs. And I go, what's that mean? She said, your
Yeah.
beliefs become real for you. You're not enjoying the ride because of what you believe. So I go, oh, so if I
Yeah.
change my beliefs, then I can enjoy the ride. She goes, you got it. And she actually
Yeah.
said, "You got it, hotshot."
Really? Ayahuasca called you a hotshot?
Yeah, she goes, "You got it, hot shot." And she like winked at me. I was like, "All right." So that was my very first time with ayahuasca. I've had a total of 12 ceremonies that I've done. I learn
Yeah.
something every time. It's
Yeah.
absolutely not a recreational experience. It's a
No.
deep learning experience, and it's a ceremony. It's
Yeah.
it's not a party. It's a ceremony. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think plant medicine, at least in my view, plant medicine, psychedelics should be approached with reverence. I've always said that. I think that they're tools that we can use for learning. And I think ayahuasca, especially, seems like it's extremely physically taxing because there's a purging that happens. Is that correct?
It can be, yeah. People
Yeah.
can have a purge. It's called la purga. you
Ah,
can you can have a big vomit. Ayahuasca is a vine, and it's mixed with a specific leaf. Plants have
yeah.
DMT. When this vine, this MAO inhibitor, allows your body to not neutralize the DMT, then it's released in the
Hmm.
body, and they say you have the
Yeah.
visions. They call it, and it's
Yeah.
basically a way to have a deep state of meditation. Ayahuasca and
Yeah.
hypnotherapy are very similar to me. Psychedelics and hypnotherapy, it takes you to that same space. Deep
Hmm.
meditation is exactly the same thing, also. You don't
Yeah.
need to do a psychedelic, but it is a shortcut. It is a way to get there fast.
Yeah.
People like Ram Dass found that if he just meditated, he could get to that same space and stay in that
Yeah.
elevated space. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a tool. And the
Yeah.
people that I've talked to are like, "I'm so afraid to do it." I go, "Then don't do it. It's a fear
Yeah.
paradigm. I don't want you to be in fear." Other people are like,
Yeah.
"Do you know where I could do it? Can you
Yeah.
help me?" And I'm like, "Oh, I know some people. I can make some
Yeah.
calls." So,
You know a guy who knows a guy,
I know a guy who knows a guy.
huh? Well, David, I really want to make sure we spend some time talking about just like what's next for you. You've done so much in your life. You've had so many big experiences. You've had all the success as a filmmaker. What's next?
Well, it's the land of the unknown at all times. For
Yeah.
me, I try to stay curious and stay in wonder. It's easy to get
Yeah.
down. It's easy to get bummed out when you have an expectation. So I
Yeah.
built something. It's a wonderful show. Um, the more people that engage with the show, and it's a video on demand, if they buy the show, that allows me to create income. I can do more things. I've got a whole bunch of
Yeah.
neat ideas I'd like to do. I've got a documentary that I'm working on, filming people that are trying to get into stand-up comedy and what's that world like.
Yeah.
And the theme of it is one of the characters that I'm filming. I say character, one of the people that I'm filming is a
Yeah.
young woman, and she said, "I'd rather die of embarrassment than live with regret of not trying." And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's what it's
Yeah.
all about. And so
Yeah.
there are a lot of documentaries that are like, the world's bad, food's bad, the atmosphere is bad, we're all gonna die, everybody
Yeah.
just, well, it doesn't, it's not uplifting. So I like to
Yeah.
try to do things that are fun, that are inspirational, that are
Yeah.
uplifting. So that's my space right now. I'm doing
Yeah.
recordings of different projects, working on things. And I am enjoying the ride, so to speak. Is everything perfect? Am I where I want to be?
No.
No, but it's part of the plan. If
Yeah.
everything's smooth and easy, there's no drama, and you get bored with it all. So I
Yeah.
definitely have a lot of things to keep me from getting bored in that respect.
I see that. You are constantly searching, which I love, which makes me wonder, what questions are still left unanswered for you? You've done all this great exploration. You have QHHT in your back pocket. What question do you still want to have answered?
Well, there's a lot of personal things in relationship. My wife of 30 years and I said, well, what would it be like if we deconstructed our marriage? And what if
Yeah.
these belief systems of monogamy are just belief
Yeah.
systems? And so
Yeah.
let's have
Yeah.
an open relationship. And then I
Yeah.
worked with a partner that we created some stuff, and it was like, well, what if we were in partnership? She said, well, I don't, we can't do that if you're married. I'm like, okay. So I said
Yeah.
to my wife, well, what if we get a divorce? What would that be like? And so
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, I think that would hurt my heart." I go, "I think it would mine too." And I
Yeah.
still feel like that's what we're supposed to do. So we've had that experience. We
Yeah.
still love each other and help each other. And we're still co parenting two great kids in their mid 20s. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
what else is there to explore? So I'm no longer in
Yeah.
partnership with that other person. And like,
Yeah.
well, is there something different? Does my soul look to resonate with something that
Hmm.
I've had different than what I've had? So there's a journey there of
Yeah.
personal discovery.
Yeah.
Monetarily, I've never felt like I've had too much money. So
Hmm.
I do believe that abundance is more than just money, and so
Yeah.
I'm open to creating that. Even in creating these episodes, when I went to Europe,
Hmm.
all of the
Yeah.
practitioners were very abundant. They put me up in places. They
Yeah.
helped me take care of meals. Only thing I had to do was take care of the travel from country to country.
Yeah.
I'm in this paradigm of, what can I create? Because I'm convinced that we're
Yeah.
here to be creators. We're not here
Yeah.
just to be, I'm just going to do this and just live my life. I think we're here to create
Hmm.
opportunities, and that might be
Yeah.
having a job, that might be going to work every day and
Hmm.
working for a business, and
Hmm.
it might be having a side hustle, and maybe that side hustle turns out to be something that now
Yeah.
is able to turn into something that you monetize off of.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's the great unknown, and
Yeah.
continue to be curious about life. But what would it be like to be comfortable not knowing what's next? Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to do that. I've never been good at that, and I'm struck at how, you talked about several huge changes in your life, and it seems like you're just I don't want to say acting on faith. I don't know why these Christian phrases
It's
keep
okay,
coming
it's still
up,
applicable. Yeah, it's still
but
faith.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're just kind of trusting and going with the
Yeah.
flow.
You know, I'm going to give presence to that. Thank you. That is so beautiful. There's so many positive
Yeah,
things you get from a religious narrative. You get
yeah,
the belief that there's something bigger than yourself. You get the
yeah.
belief that there's something after your life. And you get the belief that somehow there's a
Hmm.
connection and a purpose for everything you do. And I still have
Yeah,
that narrative. It's no
yeah.
longer in the narrative of you're unworthy and Jesus has to save you from your sin and God has a wonderful plan for your life. So
Sure.
I do believe now I'm the creator of those experiences and I can move forward.
Yeah,
But I have to stay in that space. Otherwise, I get depressed and I'm like, I don't care anymore. I just want
yeah,
to die. Brr, 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 brr.
yeah.
And then that's
Right,
another sad, I'm a victim mode. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a victim anymore. All right, reframe.
right,
I
right,
do
right.
this on a daily basis. I did it this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we all do, right? We all go into these spaces. I don't think we're meant to have one static experience. I mean, our experiences are so dynamic. We are going to fluctuate through these feelings and these moods as we go through this really wild journey, this mysterious journey that's life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. So that's just part of it. That's part of
Yeah.
the you can't know everything. And in fact, there have been sessions where people do hypnotherapy sessions, QHHT sessions, and their spirit guides
Hmm.
are present and they see this and they're like, the facilitator will say, ask your spirit guide, what's next for you? And they're like, nope, they
Yeah.
won't talk about it. In fact, there's
Yeah.
an episode where Dr. Erica Middlemiss has somebody she's working with named Becky,
Yeah.
and the episode is called Walk the Path. And Becky sees this guardian, and the guardian is an actual place that was a waterfall. And she shows a
Hmm.
picture in the episode. And you could literally see a big giant face that looks like eyes and a nose and a mouth on the other
Wow.
side of the waterfall. And she said, the guardian is there. The guardian told me to walk the path, and I'm
Hmm.
supposed to light it with the crown. And the crown was her intuition that she could light the path. And so
Yeah.
Erica says, well, is there anything else? And she goes, no, the guardian's asleep. She goes, what? Yeah, he's asleep, so there's no more information. And we all
Yeah.
got a chuckle out of that. And
Yeah.
later Becky told me, she said, that was for me to use my own intuition. They
Yeah.
won't tell us what's next. We just have to be guided by our own intuition. And that's
Yeah.
where I believe the free will comes in. Will
Yeah.
you trust that you're guided, that you're on a path? And will you trust that whatever decision you make is the right path
Yeah.
for you?
Yeah, and it can be so difficult. I mean, at least I'm speaking for myself here. It can be so difficult to take those steps to just, trust yourself, trust your intuition and make those next steps, which I guess maybe is a good time to ask for your advice then, because we have so many listeners, so many watchers who are just starting out on their spiritual journey. Maybe they had, a spiritual awakening. Maybe they're just leaving organized religion. Maybe they're just questioning. What advice do you have to people who are just starting to ask these questions?
You are not going crazy. You are simply waking up.
Yeah.
You've been a character playing your life, and now you're starting to realize you're a bigger thing than just who you are. You're
Yeah.
waking up. Enjoy the ride. Go into everything with palms up and say, yeah, yeah, I'll try that. You're going to experience things you go, I'm not doing that again. And then other things you're going to be like, I need to find out more about that. Find books, find resources. There's lots of YouTube content. There's lots of great things out there. For me, hypnotherapy has informed my life. Find a facilitator. The Newton website, the Newton Institute has resources. Dolores Cannon's QHHT has resources. There are resources. There is help along the way, and just be open and don't think you know everything, because as soon as you do, you're going to learn something new.
Yeah. I always joke, I know absolutely nothing. And every day that goes by, the more people I talk to, I'm like, I know even less than I thought I did. So I love that advice. David, where can people find you and your work?
So I have produced content I put on Amazon Prime. It's video on demand. So Adapting to Dive is there. It's a movie I created with the Dive Heart organization. Journeys into the Soul is there. It's a 20-episode documentary series detailing what would it be like to have a session. So you meet a person, you meet a client, they have this journey into their soul. And then I actually do a 2-week follow-up. So, how was it? It's been 2 weeks. How have you integrated it? So it's a fun, easy to watch. My first goal was to create something that was entertaining and secondarily educational and inspirational. And every single episode, you learn something from it. So that is the joy space that I'm in. And, how can I be a part of what we're all doing in this world? And how can I help other people? When I was a little kid, I was told that I needed to get people to be saved from hell. And as a grown up now, I realize I'm still trying to help people be saved from hell. But now hell isn't a destination. It's that trap of our minds. It's the prison that we put ourselves in, that own hell that we can be in. And if I can free someone from hell, it's been a good day.
Beautiful. David, this was such an amazing conversation. Thank you for going to the deep woo-woo places with me. That was such a treat.
I'm a yes to everything, and it's all wonderful. And so just go with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Highly Spiritual Person podcast. I really hope you found this conversation inspiring and uplifting. If you did, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to our channel for more updates. And remember, sharing is caring, so if you think others would benefit from this content, don't hesitate to share it with your friends and family. We'll be back with more exciting content, so stay tuned and stay curious.